All right, so let's just kick right on off. Lorena, thank you so much for being here today. For everybody that's tuning in, tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement with BizWorld.
Yes, thank you. I've been involved with BizWorld for 12 years when I launched the UK international organization as a partner of the BizWorld US HQ. But actually, I got to know BizWorld when they started back in the late 90s, when it started as a voluntary, people that knew Tim well. And so, through one of his contacts, I was invited to be one of the volunteers, and I taught the program in one of the schools in Palo Alto.
Wow.
It was like one weekly session for about weeks, and it was a great experience. I absolutely fell in love with the program. And then years later, when I was already living and working in London, I looked it up and realized that they were not yet established. So I reached out, went to visit them, and they said that they would be very happy to do a pilot and see if this could take off in the UK.
Exciting. Wow. So actually going pretty far back to having taught the program in California to then being able to launch the pilot overseas now in the UK. Wow, that's amazing. I didn't even realize you've been involved for so long.
Yeah, well, after that first experience back in, I think it was
Okay.
1999 or the year 2000, I didn't keep track of it because that's around that time, a few years later, I moved to Europe after, I was actually working in technology at that time. And what really, I wasn't yet a parent, so I hadn't yet had children. But really, really impressed me was how the program was teaching those real world life skills and business skills to very young kids. They were about, I think, 10 or 11 years old, the kids that we taught, and also the fact that they could understand it so easily. And drawing a parallel of the work that I was doing at that time, I was working as head of product in a tech startup that went through a very fast growth journey from being 15 people to an IPO in less
Oh,
than two
wow.
years. So being able to articulate that same startup playbook to the young kids and them enjoying that and learning so early in their lives was very fulfilling, and yeah, it gave me a great sense of being able to be providing value and
It's
impact.
great. Yep, I love that parallel between the tech startup that reached IPO that you were a part of, and then seeing how bringing that education to youth could really benefit them. As well as you said, it made you feel great that you're actually making a difference. If you can think back, what was it that initially drew you to BizWorld and pushed you over that edge to get involved?
Yeah, so then actually it was the time where my daughter was coming to that age. She had just turned 11, and we were also coincidentally going to the US for, some family wedding. And so I thought, okay, well, and I called them up and got in touch with then the CEO and met and found out what their plans were in Europe and how they worked internationally. And so there was an opportunity for setting up the organization in the UK. So we went ahead, and it was really good to see what they were doing and how the program had evolved with a so much more of a wider remit with teachers and schools across the United States. And they already had doubled with some international partners, including the Netherlands. So that was an opportunity to then mirror that model. And then also, I launched a pilot in London. So I said, okay, we'll launch a pilot to try it out, and brought a couple of people in my network that were also teachers. So I combined the teaching aspect with the entrepreneurs and in the VC angle as well. So we brought like a team of 4 or 5 people with different backgrounds. And we did that with my daughter's school's class. And we hosted over 2 weekends, 2 Saturdays. And when we finished, we had all of the parents knocking on my door saying, "This was amazing, how can we help?" And that's how we built it.
Wow. You specifically have made a huge impact for BizWorld International. And so it's great to hear that it sounds like because your daughter was then in the school system, it felt like education that would be great for her. Is that correct? And that is what originally made you want to bring it to the UK?
Yeah, I just was much more in touch with the needs of that young segment of, the children, and also what skills they were and were not getting. The other aspect was also quite interesting and fascinating for me was the fact that I am not a European native. I'm originally from South America, from Argentina. So when it's a very entrepreneurial culture, out of necessity. And I think we can draw parallels like, India and other developing countries that people learn entrepreneurial skills because it's part of the culture, it's part of growing up. Perhaps Europe is a little bit more, Europe, UK, there's a variety of, different backgrounds, but not necessarily as entrepreneurial as the US. So for me, when I went to California and started my career in a very entrepreneurial tech industry, it was very, very inspiring. And so then being able to see that kids can have access to that was more inspiring. And then in the UK, there's a need for that because in Europe as well. So that was the connection. So yes, my daughter was coming to that age, so I had the opportunity to try it out. It was much easier to try it out then, and I had the network of parents that were all then the gate, sort of the conduits and the channels to actually open doors in schools. So we created almost like an ambassador team of mothers and parents who then opened the doors in their schools, communities, and we created a task force. So we did a lean operation, but created a task force for people that some of them were parents that hadn't worked for a while, and so I trained them back into work mode, and then we could actually run the operation in a lean way and have impact for the
Wow,
schools.
I love that. So this is a question just for me on the marketing side. It sounds like you strategically ignited parents to be spokespeople for BizWorld to get it into their kids' schools. Did you think that was pretty successful?
Yes, I think that was the easiest way forward because the teachers love this world, by the way, and normally what happened once we got into a school, then we had repeats every year. And the only times that then we had perhaps a bit of a stop and start was when the teachers left or changed schools or were promoted, or there were some changes in staff. But when they were there, then once they saw the program, they basically wanted to carry on and do it on a recurring basis consistently. But before they got there, they don't necessarily have decision-making power. And so unless we could get to the head of, for example, the head of primary school or the head of secondary school, our sweet spot was in the UK, it worked well between 11 and 13 years old, what we call the BizWorld Pro standard curriculum. Now there's a few other components and courses that can be targeting the 13 to 15, even up to 17, 18 in the school system. And of course, we have YES on top of that from 16 to 22. So that was the main thing. So teachers were open, but they did not have decision-making power necessarily, and they were always very receptive when we did it through the warm introductions of the
Right.
parents who were typically involved with the school at a deeper
Good
level.
to know. Good to know. That's very interesting to me specifically, right? Is that go through parents to get the program into the schools, and that makes it easier for teachers even. And so, Lorena, you just mentioned yes. And so take us back, I think it was 2023 when you all first adopted the Yes program internationally. What did that look like? How did you all even get started?
Yes. So I knew that Yes was beginning to take shape in the US beforehand. And we also had, we navigated a bit of the change in the modality of teaching through the pandemic, which we started doing some online work. And so, yeah, so the BizWorld team, the US BizWorld team asked me if we wanted to participate and do an international cohort. And I was a little skeptical at first. And then I thought, okay, well, I think it's a great idea to give it a go. So we agreed to do a pilot where we had Middle East, Japan, China, and UK, so the different international partners coming together. And we said that we would go for one or two startups each. So we would have a small cohort to start with. And we absolutely said we did not want to go beyond, let's say, 10 startups in total for those four regions because we wanted to ensure that we had the opportunity to test the concept and not get overwhelmed or have technical problems because you just have too many people to serve when the program wasn't yet fully established. So, and we worked together. We found the right time of the day. We did it on Saturdays morning, so it worked really well. And it was excellent to work alongside the international partners with the folks in the different regions. And we basically had the 12 weeks of curriculum in terms of workshops, and we divided up who was going to be sourcing those experts. And then we all sourced our own startups and brought our own mentors for the startups. And then we had a very good model. So it was a truly collaborative approach that was great because it was much more efficient and less, resource intensive. But on the other hand, also it added that additional to the entrepreneurs and to the proposition to have an international platform from the get-go, which is not that common, and it's not something that's abundant, and certainly not for very young people, for young entrepreneurs. So from the get-go, the startup founders sitting in, remote places in Japan, in China, in outside London, et cetera, was phenomenal to see them collaborating, communicating. There was also the language barrier a little bit, and so understanding that and shaping into that. So that's when one of the entrepreneurs that we incubated the company's called Ankhway, two brothers who were phenomenal and are phenomenal in their success. I think we had quite a bit of coverage on them. Yeah, from zero to, I don't know if you want me to talk a little bit about them, from zero to £2 million revenue in less than a year with a $10,000 seed. Yeah, it was fantastic. And it's great to see what they're doing with a wellness product, doing it as an online platform.
Amazing. We'll talk more about Ankway here in a minute, but just so great to hear that when BizWorld reached out to have you be involved in this international partnership and sort of pilot program, that there were so many benefits, like getting all of the different countries together for you all to be able to learn together, as well as the students to get like international experience, even the communication and like language barriers is like an additional learning piece, huh?
Absolutely. And for me, I really liked it. I wasn't going to not do it. I actually felt I wanted to make sure we were at the right time, but that's exactly what it is about that I love about the entrepreneurial spirit that comes from that part of the world, the Bay Area and, California, where, the tech world has started. It's about just go for it, just try it, just
Yeah.
do it, test it. It's not about whether you're going to fail or not. It's about trying and doing it. And also, in my case, in my own parallel career, continuing with my own tech experience. So I was also involved in corporate roles where I learned a lot about running international teams and running international, go-to-market initiatives, working at Oracle, so international company. And then I also worked in startups as, head of sales, chief revenue officer. So that understanding, and then later in life, the last 5 years, I've been doing that on an investment fractional advisory basis, and as an advisor to a couple of accelerators, for example, a deep tech accelerator. So I've seen it in action for the
Yeah.
grown-ups. I've been one of the experts, I've been one of the mentors, also collaborate with London Business School on that too. So seeing that model and then adapt it to the young generation, the 16 to 22-year-olds, in an international setting with the BizWorld support, which is fundamental to the success of this formula, has been an actual privilege.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
Wow. Lorena, so you have a lot of experience activating international companies, international partnerships, collaborations, not just with BizWorld, but corporations as well. To anybody out there that is considering an international partner, that's considering adopting BizWorld, or adopting the Yes program, what advice could you give them that will allow them to start well and, dare I say, guarantee them success?
Yeah, well, I think it's really about that open-mindedness, and you can start small, but basically create an initial plan and work very closely with the BizWorld HQ team that they are there to support the international partners. They're very keen to grow this. And so just to not hesitate to try things and in essence, it is like it's about creating that go-to-market plan because the product is there. It's already offered by BizWorld. So there might be some localization. But the key thing in that go-to-market plan is to find those, what I call the, ideal customer profiles for the key stakeholders. So there's two parts of it. Well, if we talk about BizWorld for the schools, that's where you have to define the target schools, the target region. You can start in a specific area and do a land and expand model. And then who are going to be your helpers? Who are going to be your allies? So it could be the parents, it could be some people in the education sector, it could also be a number of sponsors, so corporate sponsors, where you could do BizWorld camps for schools. So the product is a little bit more comprehensive. So it's the partnership, let's say, with an AWS or a Google working alongside then BizWorld and offering that to schools. So that's one aspect. So creating those elements of how you can create the pilots and then grow from there. On the yes side, there's a similarity, but basically, again, finding how you're going to source the entrepreneurs. So, of course, you can go and put the message out in the world and do social media, but also you can work with collaborative partners. So what we are doing now is we are collaborating with universities, and we're launching a UK-Canada cohort. So now we're doing our own international cohort hosted by BizWorld UK, just because we saw an opportunity. There's a lot of international, cross-border collaboration between UK and Canada. And there's a big opportunity there to bring this proposition to the entrepreneurs, and BizWorld was not yet in Canada. So it's almost like we're incubating Canada while starting this new cohort with Yes. So that could be another way to do that, right? To create a new region by supporting and collaborating with an already existing international partner. That could be a bit more of a hand-holding. So with Canada, we're launching the Yes cohort between 10 and 20 startups in October this year. And we are planning to grow the platform internationally. And the collaboration with universities is finding, we have 5 universities in UK, 5 in Canada. So universities like UCL, London Business School, etc. in locally, and then a number of universities in the area of Alberta and Calgary and East and West Coast in Canada that are promoting the program to their student base, because it fits really well with those sort of freshman years, people that just arrived in university or their second or third year, and this is run on the Saturdays. And they can then fit in the coursework and curriculum throughout other activities, and it's very manageable. But it's a great opportunity for them to launch businesses and get support.
Absolutely. How exciting that not only the partnership with the universities, I think, is amazing. Launching of BizWorld Canada is so exciting as well. But just to reiterate, right, for international partners that are considering joining, it's like one, you said rely heavy on BizWorld HQ, right, in California. Like they are so supportive and here to help because the Yes program, it already exists, right? BizWorld's other programs already exist. You're not starting from ground zero. And then a great tip also is look for partnerships, look for support, right? Who are your key audiences, stakeholders, those people that want to help? And it just makes it the whole launch pretty easy, actually, pretty seamless.
Exactly, and the other benefit and also nature of this community, it's a very neat, tight community around BizWorld, is also the other international partners. So I speak regularly with the other partners and learn from each other. We learn from each other. We share best practice. And that is super exciting too. And we are exploring and doing a couple of things. For example, we could do a collaboration between UK and Japan and do some student trips for each location and host some BizWorld workshops together. Last year, in April, around Easter time, we had an international summit for BizWorld. So the BizWorld UK team hosted, but it was really the US HQ team came along with the international partners, and we were at the King's College University in central London, and we hosted 20 kids to do the launch of what we call ID8, the new program, which is STEM focused for the kids. They were between 11 and 15, and they came with their parents as well. And so we had the whole Business International and HQ team teaching together. It was so cool. In addition to doing some, internal meetings to talk about the strategy and the roadmap and how we're growing the platform together. So it was super exciting to have that week where we had all those kids hosted locally, and the parents and the kids were super excited. Very, very great
That's
feedback.
wonderful. Yeah, there's so much support between all the international partners for BizWorld, which is great. Lauren, I'm thinking a little bit about some of
Yes.
the success stories, right? You mentioned Ankhway. Tell us a little bit more about them, or potentially there, what other sort of success stories come to mind around the International Yes program?
Yes. So let's start with Ankhway. What I loved about this program is obviously it's a combination. The entrepreneurs are super talented. They come with their ideas. Sometimes they already have a product. In their case, they had an idea. They were exploring the different types of products that they were going to be, packaging and selling around. It's a supplement for
Mm,
ADHD based on a variety of over-the-counter wellness mushroom products. So, but what they really needed was that additional business support, things like branding, naming, understanding the concept of IP, distribution channels, all of the financials around that. So typically entrepreneurs will have a set of skills that might be their core sort of experience, interest, knowledge, and then having access to all of the other elements that are absolutely critical for the success of a business and to minimize, the spending time and money on things that don't work. So really trying to get things right first time. Not being afraid to
mm,
fail, but yes, trying to be as capital efficient, time efficient, and excited and learning along the way and thinking
mm,
big. So one of the things I ask the entrepreneurs that sign up, I always say, give me your Christmas list of the perfect mentor that you want
that's
support
great.
from, because you get a dedicated mentor for 12 weeks. Normally they work with them for an hour a week. And I ask them, give me your wish list, write it down, and just don't be afraid to really ask for absolutely everything. And it was fantastic because they wrote it up and I looked at it. And then I went into my network to go and recruit mentors. And I found Amy, who was phenomenal for them. And she's actually American, living in London with the retail background. And she also was in between things, so she had extra time available. And it was absolutely perfect for them. And they rebranded, they came up with a new name. Ankhway was the new name. The packaging, positioning, adding the tone on the social media. And then obviously within the rest of the curriculum, which is super structured, they had all the other bits and pieces. And then we got them ready to pitch. We have a regional
Mhm.
pitch day with typically a variety of entrepreneurs, investors, angels that are really good at being able to give feedback to startups and select the winners. And then they won in the regional competition, so then they went to the Silicon Valley Global Final Demo Day. And we were very supportive along the way, getting them ready the day before the pitch, making sure that they were strong in terms of their conviction. So it's a combination of actual, real operational excellence around the
Mm,
delivery of the business, but also the emotional support, the psychological, additional understanding of what they need as young founders, and yeah, and just trusting themselves that they will be okay and that we have their back.
Yes, and BizWorld had a huge impact specifically on these young entrepreneurs, with the Ankway. Where would you say they were before joining the Yes program versus where were these young entrepreneurs after the Yes program ended and today?
Yeah, well, in the case of Ankhway, they were just starting. So they had experience in social media agency before, but they were just starting a product. So I think that, obviously having the Silicon Valley exposure, that additional sense of confidence, and in a very short period of time, having that clarity and that format of what's your business model. Then they got the $10,000. They launched their Thanksgiving Black Friday
Mhm.
campaign. And then not only did they get the money, they also got support along the way once they were the winners, and they get support for a year. So I think that definitely it's how to quantify, because there are probably other factors as well in their journey that are provided by the ecosystem at large. But I would say it's a very important, absolutely fundamental component. And then we saw this year that the last, actually last summer, we had the cohort with UK and Middle East. So we did a UK UAE plus cohort with 11 startups. So that was our second pilot. And we had StudyStash and National Neurodiversity Trainings, two startups that had gone through a previous student incubator type program, which was very helpful for them to get going and come up with a product. So when they came to Yes, they both had a product. One was a little bit more advanced, NNT had already a product and a couple of clients, but it was mostly a services play. And then StudyStash was just at a prototype stage. And so what again, and they had some angels with a little bit of pre-seed capital in the mix. But what this gave them was that packaging and strength around the very easy access to resource around how do you package and go to
Mm.
market, an understanding of that global perspective. In the case of StudyStash, their clients are universities, so now we're going to help them also open some doors because we have that connection, and this is a very valuable, very sound product that they developed and launched. And so during the cohort with Yes, they launched to 5,000 plus students and got that product adopted in beta mode, and then they went production. And they then shaped their actual financial model and their pricing and the revenue progression, so the estimates and the prediction of how to actually grow the business. So the support around that was also quite important. And then, of course, those two companies won in the local final. So then they went to the Silicon Valley International final. And they actually went in person, and they were super excited. They went to, Hero City. So they had a number of meetings that the BizWorld HQ team supported on. They also got some cash, they got some media coverage. So all of a sudden, basically we helped them become international
Mm.
companies instantaneously. And I think it's a combination of the confidence, the conviction, and the motivation, because now they are on the global stage. Even from the beginning, they're on the global stage. So that gives an extra element of now they're part of this program and community. Secondly, the tools and best practice that come from the Bay Area, where the best companies in the world are built in the tech industry, or at least what we know that the companies that come from there are amazing, incredible. It's just the ecosystem. So why not leverage those great set of resources? And then finally, the confidence, the resources, and then of course, then once they achieve that, they can then do that go to market, which is with a strong set of
Wow.
support and a bit of funding.
Great.
So I think that those elements are really important to go the distance, because a huge number of startups, it's a very small number of startups, unfortunately, that make it through to become,
Mm.
to go all the way for success. But this gives at least another 50 or 60% additional help
Absolutely.
for them to actually make it. And we have 80% of the startups in the YES program continue beyond the first year, which is a really good
That's an
statistic
amazing.
across the board, not just of the Silicon
Yeah,
Valley.
that's an amazing statistic, right? That actually 80% of these startups that come into the S program continue, right? Because as we know, there's the vast majority of startups and new businesses fail so quickly or just go out of business. But Lorena, thank you for sharing this, right? So this is
Yes.
just three stories out of the BizWorld International and the Yes International program. And of course, there's a lot of factors, right? It's not just BizWorld, it's not just Yes. But I would love to quantify a little bit more impact numbers here. So we mentioned Ankhway, that they were very new. They had other social media agency experience, but they just launched a product when they came into Yes. They got, I think, 10,000 in seed funding. And where's their business now? How are they doing currently?
Yeah, I mean they're growing so fast, so rapidly. What I know is they surpassed the probably like $3.5 million revenue mark, and they are about 60 to 70% of their clients are on recurring
Wow.
subscription of monthly. I think it's 29.99.
Yeah,
So that's phenomenal as well. So having that concept of in B2C or D2C revenue recurrence is really
that's great.
important. So, and the amount of positive reviews that they get from the market and the way that they've helped people in their journey around addressing ADHD, yeah, has been phenomenal.
Absolutely.
In in terms of StudyStash, they have, after they came to BizWorld, and they secured their £700,000, which is about $900,000 seed round or pre-seed round, and then they are now about £300,000
Mhm.
revenue, and counting. So they really are strong. And this is just the
Yeah,
beginning. So I can see how these guys are really, they have a very solid proposition. And then on the NNT side, National Neurodiversity Training, who they were actually the winners. What we have seen is that refinement of the value proposition for corporates, adding a productization scalable model, not just services, but actually putting a wrapper of product around what they offer, which is actually an incredibly important, impactful product to support the variety of neurodiversity skills and requirements and needs in the workplace. So managers, whole teams,
mhm,
whole departments know how to best serve those needs, and they can all be more productive. So there's probably going to be more statistics and more benchmarks to be created as a result of their work, and that's going to be coming. That is really great to see how, at the moment, they're focusing on the UK. We'll see whether there's an opportunity to make it global.
sure.
On the StudyStash side, they are already starting to open the doors in the US.
Amazing.
And that's going to be one of the things that we are going to definitely be very keen to support them with.
Exciting.
And I think that they have a great opportunity.
Amazing. Not only did BizWorld allow, these are just three examples, right? Of these were the winners. Everybody else still got global exposure. BizWorld and the Yes program allow these entrepreneurs to now be global businesses. And where you mentioned StudyStash, I actually did an interview with them, and so it's on our YouTube channel, on our social medias. Everybody should check it out. But they went from the online program to California, where directly because of BizWorld, they had conversations and meetings with investors that allowed them to raise, was it 300,000, 900,000?
No, 700,000 pounds, which is about $900,000. Yes,
What an amazing opportunity. Like I said, I spoke with them. We're actually going to do another interview with them as well to see how they're doing today.
great.
But what a great impact was made for them. What do you?
And actually, what you said, Wayne, is actually really important too, which is that's the small percentage that are the winners, because obviously we have that, it's that part of the structure of the competition. But also, what's super important, and when we talked about that 80% of the startups that come to this world, yes, they continue beyond that year one. That is really important because it is about helping this new generation of founders, the young people that sometimes also, depending on the location, they might not be clear about what they want to do with their careers. Do they have opportunities for jobs? So exposing them early on to entrepreneurship and giving them that foundation and the platform to, with resources to get that going quickly and early, is super important to then, it could be that seed that's planted to the big businesses of the future.
Mhm.
So we have seen, and we have some of our mentors that come to help. They come on the first session of Yes on week one, and then they come on week 12, 13 when they actually do the pitch competition, and they see the progress that every single one of these founders make, and how they actually come sometimes with an idea. They might decide to pivot. and how actual businesses are formed 12 weeks later in record time. And then they can, it's a variety of things. We had robotics products, we had hospitality, hotels, booking products, we had other wellness products, we had 3D printing products, so a whole variety of capabilities. And we are super excited now to bring even more support around AI with, obviously, the world is changing, the landscape of tech is changing, with making accessible these new AI tools that people are still trying to figure out how to use them, how can, we leverage them, but also how can we protect the way we learn, the way we use our cognitive skills, etc. So fundamentally, we are committed now to adding those capabilities and those skills and that guidance into the new curriculum that we're launching this year, working obviously collaboratively with our UK team and the US HQ team and tech partners as well. So we can actually offer a variety of tools that people can use, having credits, and then they can experiment and build their businesses and don't have to scramble around and take too long to figure that out. We can guide them on that, and then they can experiment on top of that.
It's great that the Yes program and BizWorld is always advancing, adopting new technologies, AI specifically, right? Making sure that their education is cutting edge. Now, Lorena, one thing that I find really interesting that you mentioned to me, I think everybody knows that the Yes program and BizWorld is great for new businesses and new founders. I'll just pause, but I'll say that sort of catch my mindset here again. My thought process is that BizWorld and the Yes program, the Young Entrepreneur Success Program, is great for new businesses, new founders, but it's also great for existing businesses and founders. You mentioned to me that even some young entrepreneurs who have been through other accelerator programs still thrive and get huge benefits from Yes. What do you think that we're doing differently that other accelerators maybe are not?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's the two parts of it. One is, see, the nature of the international platform, the global platform from the get-go is fundamental. Not many accelerators are set up that way. And you have that just obviously because of the strength and the legacy and the trajectory of Tim Draper founding BizWorld and then BizWorld as an organization being around for over 25
Yeah.
years. It's beautiful to see that value of their ecosystem, of the nature of the resources, the programs, the foundations that they have, amazing value to support entrepreneurship in the US, but also internationally. So that is something that you can't just replicate overnight. But the second part, and for that young audience, so that's that specific gap, right? There are other accelerators in the world that are international, but then not necessarily for that young audience, and also with that aspect of impact. And the second part is the strength of the support. It's very structured, and it's very interactive, and it provides a very organized step-by-step methodology. That for me also was the number one thing that I fell in love with when actually not just for Yes, but also for BizWorld. So when I taught that first BizWorld class in that school in Palo Alto, I don't remember the name of the school, and I saw a box. At that time we had a box, which was the BizWorld program with the manual and all the resources and the string for the bracelets. And the way that the methodology was laid out for the students, for the teachers, was so nice to understand, so easy to understand, so intuitive. And for me, coming from the software world, having been a product manager, at that time I was a head of product, and having been a developer, that made it just, I was very impressed by how that was designed. It was designed with that top sort of Silicon Valley product in mind. So that has carried through to the Yes curriculum and every other course and offering that BizWorld has put out, it has launched into the market. And that for me is just an attestament of quality and real value, and it makes it easier for anyone that wants to teach it in the case of BizWorld for the kids, for the young kids, and also for Yes. When I go and recruit the mentors that are going to support the entrepreneurs, or when we recruit the experts that are going to teach the workshops, we have that formula, we have that platform, we have the online community, and it's very easy. So they don't need to make it up. They don't need to come in with their own perspective. They can add some additional stories and additional, expertise when they talk about and help people on their journeys. But there's that foundation. So we ensure that everybody gets that baseline, and but also there's a lot of space for innovation beyond
Great.
that. So it's like a mini Stanford course or something. It's really
It
impressive.
is very impressive. So something you just mentioned was around mentors, right? The mentor network around the Yes program is, dare I say, like a superpower. Why do a lot of these mentors they keep coming back cohort after cohort, year after year? What are mentors gaining from investing their time into the Yes program?
So great question. And I think it's just as simple as people want to give back. When we give back what we have been given, it's a great way to feel satisfaction, to have fulfillment,
Mhm.
to pass on those gifts to others. And that's just the nature, I think, of human beings. So people don't necessarily realize that when they're doing the day-to-day, day job that they're on. So they're immersed in their careers, they have life pressures, commitments and responsibilities. So it's sometimes hard to understand why spending an hour a week with a mentee company would give us so much, but actually it does. In addition to that, when we combine the, let's say, more experienced, I call it the elderly wise
Uh,
people, with the young innovative generation, and especially now that the new generation is, they are all AI natives. Of course, they were digital natives before as well, and you bring them together. The older people, the mentors, learn from their mentees,
sure.
and it's beautiful to see that. It's really incredible.
And so the mentor network is really amazing, like I said, right? Mentors are gaining because they're getting to help the young entrepreneurs as well as they're learning from them as well. Are there any specific stories of a mentor young entrepreneur relationship that comes to mind that really changed the trajectory of the company?
Well, yes, a couple of stories. I think that one that comes to mind is the National Neurodiversity Training (NNT). I introduced Darren Edgar to Iveta and her team, and it was great to see that. And Darren is Canadian actually, and she's now one of our advisors. And by working with them, by them working together, Darren first was not very clear about, what this was about, but she thought she'd give it a go. She absolutely loved it, and now she's actually become a formal advisor instead, stayed involved
Wow.
in the
Wow.
business, and has helped. I mean, Aita and her team, they won the global final. So Darren's experience being an international serial CEO has been so fundamental to that support as well, and the direction and the trajectory of the company that's growing now. And then also Darren has agreed to now help us and be an advisor in the BizWorld UK organization. So working on she's part of our advisory board, and the reason that we're also launching into Canada. So really phenomenal story in that way, and that she's loving it so much that she's staying involved in the business. And then another story that I like is for the StudyStash team. I got involved. I invited Yasmina, who is an ex-Googler, very senior business development leader in Europe, who then had just recently stepped down to become more of a NED advisor, executive. And so it was a perfect timing for her to be introduced to Ben and Jonathan and become their mentor. And I mean, again, how exciting to see somebody that has that international experience, that understands the US, works in a global corporation like Google, to then come and advise that team that's just starting out with a software proposition that has aspirations to go international. So really, really exciting in that way too. Yeah,
Well, it just goes to show that it isn't a just a quick one-off mentor mentee relationship that's very transactional. These mentors are staying around to actually becoming part of the advisory board of the businesses because they really make a huge impact, huh?
exactly.
That's so great. Lorena, as we start to wrap up, if there's international partners or international educators in general that are listening, if you could directly just say, like, why do you think that more international educators should join BizWorld or start to help with the Yes program?
I think that it opens up new doors, right? You're at the heart of the young generation, the new skills that are coming in through the pipeline of talent, and learning the latest trends on entrepreneurship, on the best practice from Silicon Valley, AI. So it's a great opportunity to be involved, to be exposed, and then it will enrich their career as educators. They will enrich their career as, tech ecosystem or business ecosystem, whether they are investors, operators, or executives that are working as employees and they just want to broaden their perspective from an innovation perspective, from an innovation scope. So yeah, I think there are lots of benefits. So pretty much anyone really could get involved. I think that, yeah, so international partners, it's great. It's an opportunity to build a business or a foundation. It could be for profit, non-profit, either way, but it's about impact. And I think there's a huge mission to be, continued and expanded by bringing this into new places in the world. And then for educators, whether it's teachers, whether it's headmistresses, headmasters, the government, the Department of Education, across different governments, across different countries, there's really great potential to bring BizWorld, which is, already all built. The curriculum is very solid, fantastic. So it's an easy way to get excellent content, very economical, into their ecosystem, and so not have to reinvent the wheel. And it could be localized, whether it's a language localization or localized around their specific curriculum. But it's a very easy thing to do. We didn't talk about the localization, but it took us a couple of weeks to localize the curriculum to the British educational system. So very, very easy job to do. And then once we did it, we kept, pace with all the new releases, and it was, yeah. So not necessary to do it again. So very easy now with AI, you can do it even quicker.
Sure.
So it's a phenomenal mission. Anyone that's passionate about education and changing the way we learn, which is about that. Can I say one more thing? One of the other huge advantages of the way that BizWorld works in the classroom, but also in the accelerator for entrepreneurs, for the older kids, it's project-based learning. It is about gaining that exposure to learning is fun, and it's real learning. It's not just having to memorize things or follow some checklist to get to the outcome. It is about real experiential learning and makes a big difference in terms of the long-lasting impact of how it's going to get to be put to use
Sure.
in people's
Like
lives.
the experiential learning. I'm so glad you brought that up because we've been speaking a lot about yes, not as much about BizWorld be more localized in schools. Something that you mentioned to me is that schools in the UK have called BizWorld the best non-curriculum program and activity. Like, why is that? And what do schools get out of BizWorld that's missing in their normal curriculum?
Yes, that's true. So we had an example of one of the leading independent schools in London who voted this 7 year. They did 7 years in a row this world, and we stopped only because of the pandemic, and they voted it the best extracurricular activity. And so what's missing, and this is one of the leading schools in the country, just the educational system hasn't yet been expanded enough to cover entrepreneurship and to cover these practical way. There are some occasional programs, and there are other organizations, some charities that provide similar capabilities, but normally it's only targeting the very older, so the 16 to 18 bracket for the in-school experiences. And they're normally coming more from the charitable world, which means the curriculum is not as entrepreneurship focused with the real life experience of an organization like BizWorld in the US, in California. I think that being able to, so supporting the BizWorld mission is an excellent way to really help springboard education and to really help equip the new generation with the tools and the experience and the nurturing to grow, to be themselves, and to really then be able to charter those important, impactful projects that the world needs, whether it's around climate issues, whether it's about social change, whether it's about a responsible use of technology, and more importantly now with a responsible use of AI. So there's so much there, and it gives almost like a horizontal platform to support a number of different initiatives which could be underpinned by different industries, different different impact missions that donors and funders could have. So matching whatever their focus of their portfolio, matching whether it's family offices, whether it's evergreen impact funds, or whether it's foundations that want to devote their resources to a platform that really can have a long-lasting global impact for the young generation across all these different domains, with social responsibility and making the world better. I think it's a fantastic
It
opportunity.
really is. Well said, how it actually, it's not just you're supporting BizWorld because you support global innovation and entrepreneurship, which supports business and economies, of course, not to mention, right, social responsibility. But it's such a great way to make an impact that spreads across every single sector.
Exactly. The medicine or healthcare, right? Engineering, science, the future of cities. So there's so many different disciplines, and this concept of local and globally connected that BizWorld
Yeah,
provides through these global regional platform as well is very unique. And so I think the impact return would be probably much bigger in the multiples compared to perhaps other projects that they could be backing.
absolutely. Lorena, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate your time and for sharing all the exciting advancements with BizWorld UK and just international overall. Do you have any last thoughts for us or anything we didn't discuss that you wanted to share?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything, and it's great to see. Yeah, thank you so much for your
Wonderful.
support, and we can't wait. I mean, our aspiration, I guess, our aim is to have growing from one cohort, so one startup incubated in 2023 in a global cohort, and then 6 in 2024, and this year we're going for 20 in 2025. And our aspiration is to start growing exponentially, so 60 plus in 2026 and beyond. So to ideally get to a point where we are supporting and incubating hundreds of founders at the same time from around the world to build their businesses and to get the support and to get the success that they want and deserve, and these beautiful businesses and impactful products being launched to market. That's our aspiration.
That's so exciting. I love it. I'm so happy that we're here to support you as well. And thank you for everything that you do for BizWorld, right? I hope it goes without being said, but let me just directly tell you thank you because it is greatly appreciated.